Hi, I'm Gwenydd Jones of the Translator Studio, specialist in teaching the art of translation. In this video, I interview David Stephenson, Chair of the American Translators Association, the ATA, Certification Committee. David explains all about the ATA Translator Certification exam and shares some behind-the-scenes information about exam setting and marking. He also tells me about the online version of the translation exam, which is available to sit on demand. Translators, I give you David Stephenson. You're here today in your capacity as chair of the ATA Certification Committee to talk to me about the ATA Translator Certification exam. I don't want to make this conversation about things that people can look up on your website, and I'll link to the website in the show notes in any case. But I did wonder, for people who aren't familiar with the exam, could you give us a brief summary of what's involved?
Sure. So the certification exam is a timed 3-hour open book exam in which the candidate must translate 2 passages, each of roughly 250 words. And we offer it in 34 language pairs, both all of which include English into English or English into foreign. The exam is graded as by assigning error points of various severity levels, depending on the impact of the error on the usefulness of the translation. So a given error may be 1 point, it could be 2, 4, 8, or 16 points. A passing grade is 17 points or fewer on both of the passages. So if it's below 17 on one, but 18 or higher on the other, you do not earn certification.
Okay, I see. And for somebody who's wondering, why get certified? Does translation certification lead to more and better paid work?
Well, I think I certainly hear that from people that once they got certified, they started getting more work. I think it attests to a certain level of professionalism that it can be impressive to people, especially in the U.S. And it shows that you have a certain level of professional competence.
How many translators sit the exam each year?
This year we had just under 400. Last year was fewer, and 2020 was almost zero. Wow. Because we didn't have the online exam yet. But 2019 and earlier, it tended to be around 500. So we're not quite up to that level yet, back to that level. But I think as more people hear about the online exam, we will get up to that level and maybe higher.
Yes, you're seeing, I'm seeing it across the board with the other translator certification exams, that this move to online, people are waiting for it. They're starting to expect it. It's just so much more comfortable to sit the exams that way, less stressful. Thinking about paper setting, how does the ATA choose the exam content?
So the passages are chosen by the same graders who mark the exam, according to program-wide standards that we've developed for the entire program, that in terms of reading level, difficulty level, and subject matter. And so as I said, the graders select the passages either in the wild or in some cases we write our own passages. And then they are, after the grader group has approved them, then it goes to another group of graders who look at them in terms of consistency with our standards across language pairs and across exam years.
Okay, because I imagine that you'll have some papers with quite a lot of people sitting the Spanish-English, for instance, which is a very common combination. And then when you go down to more minority languages, I suppose you may just have a few people sitting the exam.
Right. Spanish accounts for the 2 directions of Spanish account for 55 to 60% of our exams. English to Spanish, actually, more than Spanish to English. Whereas, well, I grade in Croatian to English, and we're lucky to have one exam a year. So we don't choose passages that often because we don't use them that often. But Spanish, Spanish, actually, English to Spanish, I believe they have a brand new set of passages every 6 months.
So do you wait for somebody to sign up for the exam before you choose the passages, or do you?
Oh, no, we have passages ready to go at all times. So whenever someone signs up for even for Croatian or Hungarian or Finnish, whatever, then we're ready for them.
And are there past papers available?
What papers?
Are there past papers available, mock exams?
I don't know what that is.
A past paper, or do you call it a mock paper? Practice.
Oh, practice. Yes. We do have practice tests, and that's a really good way to prepare for the exam. They are retired passages, and they're evaluated by the same graders who do the actual exam, applying the same standards. And the exam itself costs $525. The practice test is $80 for members, $120 for non-members, non-AT members. So it's a really good way, because the exam is a no return exam. You're only told either congratulations, you passed, or here's your average error score, because 2 graders look at every exam. So if one gives you 26 points and the other is 20, then they say your average was 23. But the practice test is returned with comments and with the grading. So it's a really good way to see what the grader's expectations are, how prepared you are, and what sort of what the point system is like.
And is there a way to see practice tests without paying? Is it possible to just download practice tests and practice alone? Are they available?
We don't have that at this point. There's legal issues with that because of copyright and so on. So we're at this point, we would like to put up a sample passage in every source language we offer, and we may do that in the future.
I understand it's hard work with so many languages involved. It's not like just one, just put up one text. You've got to do it across the board, and it's got to be fair, I suppose. You can't favor a majority language. Every language has to be represented.
Right.
How do you, I think you just said this, but I'd like to clarify. How do you ensure marking consistency across the different languages? I think you just said that each paper is marked by 2 examiners. Is that correct?
Yes. So so across languages, that's a tricky thing, because different languages have different types of challenges. So an English passage that is a really good test for into Spanish might be terrible for into Russian, or vice versa. So it's a little hard, but we do require our graders, when selecting passages, to identify and articulate specific challenges at the word level and at the sentence level, and they have to really pay a lot of attention to that. And that's one of the things that the reviewers are looking at before the passages get the final okay. Within language pairs, groups maintain what we call passage-specific guidelines, where they address in advance, before the passage goes into use, they address what they anticipate to be errors that will arise, and decide how they're going to mark them, what severity, what error category. And then as exams start coming in, then they update those continually with the markings that they've done, so that they remain consistent with each other.
Okay, and then did you say between 2, there'll be 2 markers and you'll take the average mark?
That's what's communicated to the candidate.
So the candidate at the end, the average between the 2 of them. Okay,
right.
That's interesting.
And if they are too far apart, then they have to get together and try to come a little closer together.
And try to figure
because obviously, I mean, it is we're applying objective criteria to what is a subjective task of saying, how bad is this? So, different people are going to say, well, I think this is really terrible. But we do have a tool, our flow chart for error point markings, which is available on the website. That shows it's a flow chart. If you answer this question yes, then you go down to the next level, and that shows whether you're assigning 1 point or 2 points for 8, 16, so on.
Yes, I think I've seen that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, because I think that's pretty helpful for people who are trying to prepare for the exam, because it helps you get into the examiner's head. How is the examiner thinking? And you don't want to be all thinking about the negative, because there are, of course, good things in any given piece of work. But yeah, I can see how it's easier to go kind of, bad. How much is bad in here than to focus on what's good. I can hear what you're saying from the translators that we work with, the different texts when we're training. You get these certain errors that almost everybody makes, or you're really impressed if a translator doesn't make it. But I'm also amazed by how many different translations you get. A text that I've seen 50 translations of, and translator 51 comes along with something completely new. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I should mention that besides error points, we also a grader can assess quality points, which come off. They can do up to 3 points for unusually artful rendering.
Okay,
so that's a good thing. We aren't just finding fault. We're also looking at quality as well.
What does the level of the exam equate to?
So actually, the certification committee just recently adopted a statement about the level of performance. And if you bear with me, I'll read part of that.
Sure. Yeah.
I just happen to have right here. So this is just the first part of this longer statement. ATA certification is a professional credential that attests to a high level of competence in accurately and naturally translating texts on a variety of topics, resulting in translations that are publishable after routine editing and proofing. So then the statement goes on to talk about the specific skills that are tested, the types of texts that appear in the exam, and what's not tested. And if anybody who's interested in this, they can go to the ATA website, look up the ATA Chronicle, the association's publication, July, August 2022 issue, and that has an article that I co-wrote presenting the statement and explaining it in more detail.
That sounds really interesting. Maybe you could give me the link to that, and we can add it into the show notes as well. And anyone who's interested can check it out. And then once you've passed the exam, are you permanently certified?
No, all certified individuals have to submit continuing education points every 3 years. And they can get that by attending conferences or a variety of ways. Okay,
and do you have to remain a member of the? You have to be a member of the ATA to sit the exam?
Yes, and you have to retain your membership to retain certification. There was a move a few years ago to open up certification to non-members, but the required bylaws change was narrowly defeated. So it's membership only for now.
Okay, and so I suppose, do people receive a certificate saying that they've passed the exam?
Yes, and they can. There's also a way to verify on the website by keying in the certified individual's certification number, and any client can then see in what language or languages they're certified.
Okay. I understand from consulting the ATA in the past that you have to, if you're writing in English, you have to write in US English. Is the exam still an option for Europeans? Might it be a good idea for me, for instance, as a British translator?
Well, I think it's especially if people who live abroad that have clients in the US, where it's a lot more recognized. I think it's definitely a good idea. The writing in English, I mean, that's really mostly about spelling, and I think most translators can get that, the OUR and all of that. Although we don't, when I'm asked to do something into UK English, then I just set the spell check to that, which helps, but you can't use spell check during the exam. So
So you have to practice my American spelling, but I agree with you. The differences aren't that significant. There's a few punctuation matters to look at, the serial comma, for instance.
Right.
But in general, I don't think it's prohibitive for someone who's used to British English to be able to write in US English. Actually, I think it's quite positive because it gets you thinking about the different language variant and different ways of dealing with things.
Yeah, another resource that we have also available on the website is the Into English grading standards, which we've developed over the years, and it's actually about 50 pages of. It's basically a style guide for the exam, for the English Into English exam. So that's a good resource for someone maybe who's not used to U.S. spelling.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Or U.S. usage, especially.
Mm-hmm. Okay, brilliant. I'll link to that too. We're going to have a long list of links here, but that's fine. So another thing that I learned, which I think this is a recent change for the ATA, is that translators can actually sit the exam on demand. They don't. It's not they don't have to wait for a specific date. Is that correct?
Yeah, so last year we introduced the online exam, but we had it at specific times, so the candidate had to fit into that slot. This year it's on demand, so the candidate goes to the ATA website, selects their language pair, pays the fee, and then they are directed to examroom.ai, who is our partner in administering the exam, and they basically do all the rest. They provide the proctor or invigilator, and they check all the technical stuff to make sure you've got the right enough bandwidth to handle it, and so on. And they're also watching about internet use.
Right. Yeah, because it's an open book exam, and so I guess you can't go anywhere on the internet. Is there a limited number of sites that you can use for reference?
There is. We have an allow list, and only sites that are on that list can be accessed. They're either automatically blocked or the proctor is watching for them. That this is a list that's been developed by the graders themselves, and so it's a really good. Previously we had a deny list. You can't go to these sites, and this is so much better because now everybody knows. Everybody's on the same playing field. Everybody knows which sites you can and can't use. We are willing to add to that site if people come with the site and say, I can't possibly translate without using the site. And we'll look at it, and maybe if it has a chat feature, then we can't allow it or something like that. But we do have we have bilingual, multilingual, and monolingual sites. Obviously, we don't allow DeepL or Google Translate, but we do allow Google. So you can Google a term, but you can't then open a link from your hits.
Okay, so you could put a term in inverted commas to make sure you've got the right collocation, or to help you understand. So that gives you quite a lot of flexibility, and I'm assuming dictionaries in general you're allowed to use.
Right.
That sounds very useful. And so is the invigilator, I take it you're sharing your screen, they're watching what you're doing on your screen, and they're watching you through your webcam, is that correct?
Right. There, you've got the front webcam. They also have you put a cell phone behind you so they can see your entire workspace. So all that's being recorded, and the screen is being recorded so it can be reviewed later, if there's suspicion of something amiss. And
so how fast is this? If we finish talking and I want to sit the exam, can I just go and sign up and sit the exam this afternoon, or is there some kind of time delay?
Well, first of all, we have an exam year that's already over, so we won't resume testing till April. So that's the earliest we could do it. But it basically runs April through September. But once April comes, then yes, you could. It depends on it depends on exam room how fast they process your request. But I think you can probably do it within a couple days.
It's amazing. It's incredible, really, when you think we're talking about technological developments that, I'm going to get certified and off you go. But of course, you do have to pass the exam, and I believe you have a low pass rate of about 20%, which I think is good. It's a sign of a difficult exam, an exam that is choosy about who's allowed to pass. If you fail, are you allowed to resit?
Yes, but not in the same calendar year. You have to wait a year because
Okay.
you would see the same passages again
Mm-hmm.
if you did it the same year.
Oh, I see. So there's the passages are set for each exam year, so you've got one go. Okay.
Usually, I think, as I said earlier, I think English Spanish rotates them out halfway through the year, just
Okay.
because they have so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that case, they can't. English Spanish candidate cannot take it twice in 1 year.
And is there any kind of appeals process if somebody fails? Is it just over? Can they make some kind of appeal?
They can request a review, in which case it goes to another grader from the same language pair who looks at it and either overturns the fail or upholds it. And then in that case, the candidate receives the marked exam back with explanation. And if they disagree with that, if they think that they shouldn't have failed, then they can then do an appeal where it goes before a panel of three: a fresh grader, someone who knows the language, probably someone grading in the opposite direction, and a member of the certification committee. And they can vote to appeal, to overturn or uphold. If their decision is split, then it goes to the certification committee. So
it's a complex process.
We don't get many appeals. We get a fair number of reviews, but really almost never an appeal.
I assume you have to pay
yes
to get reviewed and appealed, because otherwise a lot of people would ask for it.
Right, and if it is overturned, then you get all that money back.
Yeah. What would be your tips for someone who wants to prepare for the exam to help them pass first time?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the practice test is really the best way to get a feel for the exam. Certainly, look at all the voluminous material on the ATA website. Some people have found useful to form a study group, and this has been done just informally, but also within the context of ATA, and the Slavic Languages Division at ATA has a very active study group, mostly Russian. And they've actually, I think, raised the pass rate just by so many people doing that and being more prepared. The pass rate is there's so many. It's a moving target. It's hard to say why it's 20%. It's not 20% for every group, and it's a little lower for some and higher for others. But a lot of that is candidate quality. Headquarters get so many calls from people saying, I want to become a translator, so I need to get certified. And that person's probably not going to pass the exam. I mean, the headquarters staff really actively tries to talk people out of doing that when they're in that situation.
Right, because you've got just the basic understanding sometimes of somebody not translating into their first language or making the assumption that they have to work into their second language, which is, for the vast majority of people, almost a direct fail, I should imagine. Not many people can pass themselves off as a first language speaker in their second language.
Right, and we also have in the U.S. a lot of heritage speakers. So maybe they grew up speaking this language, but they never really studied it formally, so they don't know how to use the subjunctive or whatever, So they tend to not do very well in the exam either.
Mm-hmm. So yes, messages, prepare. The study groups sound great. It's something that we've done in our courses. We call them study buddies, to try to link people together for accountability and motivation, and perhaps in the longer term also for networking. The people who pass and go through and then become translators, well, then you've got a circle of colleagues, because as I'm sure you're well aware, it can be quite a lonely job sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why conferences are great.
Yeah. Just to finish up, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone that I interview, which is if you have a message for early career translators. Yeah,
I would say specialize. I think find a subject matter, even if it's a broad subject matter like legal, that you're comfortable with, and really delve into it. Read everything you can in both your source and your target language, and in that way you can develop confidence to approach a wide variety of materials. The other thing would be join an association. I think that's important. Associations are actually losing membership these days, I think, across the board. And part of that is because that used to be the only game in town for networking, and now there's all sorts of online networking opportunities. But I think, I just came back from the ATA conference in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and it's just such a major difference after having done it remotely for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. It's that conversation in the hallway that you just can't duplicate on a remote conference held by Zoom or whatever, or via LinkedIn. So I would say, definitely find a way to network in person.
That sounds like great advice. Well, thank you so much, David, for speaking to me today. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in everything you've shared about the ATA exam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this interview from the Translators Studio. We specialise in teaching the art of translation and in preparing translators for certification through the DipTrans exam. If you like our content, please let us know by clicking on the subscribe button. See you in the next video.